Carl Jung believed that the path to inner peace is not about suppressing emotions, but about transforming the way we relate to them. Many people assume that detachment means becoming indifferent or emotionally numb, but in reality, it is about understanding our emotions deeply and learning to let go of what no longer serves us. Think about how often you find yourself trapped in repetitive thoughts about a person, a situation, or a painful memory. These experiences can drain your energy, fill you with anxiety, and make you feel stuck. Maybe it's a relationship that brings you more pain than joy, yet you struggle to walk away. Or perhaps it's a past event that lingers in your mind, making you feel like you can never fully move on. Jung suggested that these patterns are not random. They are messages from your unconscious mind urging you to pay attention. Unlike logical reasoning, the unconscious does not communicate through words, but rather through emotions, symbols, and behavioral patterns. It continuously sends us signals, yet most of the time, we ignore them. This is why we often find ourselves repeating the same mistakes, facing similar conflicts, or attracting the same kind of relationships. According to Jung, this happens because we have not yet learned the lessons these experiences are meant to teach us. Life, he believed, is an ongoing dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious. Until we acknowledge this internal conversation, we remain caught in a cycle of frustration and pain. True emotional detachment is not about forcing yourself to forget or pretending something doesn't affect you. It's about recognizing the emotional weight you've been carrying, processing it, and consciously deciding to release it. Letting go is not a form of escape. It is an act of courage. It requires us to face our deepest fears, acknowledge our wounds, and make peace with them. When we continue to hold on to people, situations, or memories that no longer align with who we are, we sacrifice our own well-being. We may lose our peace of mind, our energy, or even our sense of purpose. Jung taught that real transformation happens when we dare to confront our inner world. By embracing our shadows instead of running from them, we open the door to self-discovery, growth, and a deeper connection with ourselves. The question is, are you willing to release what is holding you back in order to step into the life you truly deserve? Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path feels familiar, predictable, and safe, yet deep inside, you know it leaves you unfulfilled. The other is uncertain, filled with the unknown, but it holds the possibility of something greater. Most people choose the familiar road, even if it causes them pain, because the fear of uncertainty outweighs their desire for change. But Jung challenges us to rethink that fear, not as an obstacle, but as an invitation to grow. When you start releasing what no longer serves you, something remarkable happens. Your energy shifts, your mind clears, and suddenly, life begins to align. The right people enter your life, new opportunities emerge, and most importantly, you rediscover a sense of peace you may have forgotten was possible. But this process demands courage. Letting go is rarely easy, especially when we've grown attached to what is familiar, even if it harms us. The key lies in trusting yourself, in that quiet, inner voice that always knows what is best, even when you ignore it. Jung believed that within each of us exists an internal compass, a silent guide pointing us toward our truth. This compass is our intuition, our deep connection to the unconscious. And when we learn to follow it, life becomes simpler, more authentic, and profoundly fulfilling. Now, take a moment to reflect. What is truly holding you back? What emotional weight are you still carrying that no longer serves you? And how would your life change if you allowed yourself to release it? It's not an easy decision, but it's one of the most powerful choices you can make. Because in the end, emotional detachment is not about loss. It's about liberation. It's about creating space for new beginnings, for what truly matters, for what aligns with your soul. And when you take that step, everything transforms: your energy, your relationships, and most importantly, your inner peace. As you embark on this journey of emotional detachment, remember, you are not losing, you are gaining. You might find yourself letting go of people, situations, or even long-held beliefs, but in doing so, you are reclaiming something far more valuable: your emotional freedom, and your true self. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as a journey of self-discovery, a path to uncover who you truly are beyond the roles and masks you have worn to fit into the world. Individuation, according to Jung, is the key to a fulfilling life. It is a process of integration, embracing both your light and your shadows, and allowing yourself to be whole. But you cannot be whole if you are still clinging to toxic relationships, limiting beliefs, or unresolved emotions. Letting go is an essential part of this journey. Only when you release what is not truly yours can you open yourself to what is meant for you. Have you ever felt like you were living a life that wasn't really your own, as if you were merely following a script someone else wrote for you? Now is the time to take control of your story. Jung would argue that this happens because we have allowed external expectations to dictate our identity. Society, family, friends, and even our own insecurities shape a mold we struggle to fit into, even at the cost of betraying our true selves. But there comes a point when that mask becomes unbearable, when the weight of pretending is too heavy to carry. That moment, when your authentic self begins to push against the surface, can be unsettling, even painful. Yet, it is also a powerful turning point, a chance to break free. Because the moment you start questioning the illusions you've been living under, when you dare to confront what you truly feel and think, you take the first real step toward liberation. Jung encourages us to see this not as a crisis, but as a transformation, an opportunity to shed what no longer defines us and embrace what genuinely does. You may be wondering, how do I begin? How do I let go? The answer lies in self-reflection. Set aside a quiet moment with yourself and ask, what emotions have I been suppressing? What situations or relationships are draining me? And most importantly, what do I truly want from my life? These questions may seem simple, but they hold immense power. Answering them with honesty sparks a conversation with your unconscious, and that dialogue is the first step toward healing. Jung believed that the unconscious is like a vast ocean, full of hidden treasures but also lurking shadows. These shadows are the parts of ourselves we have denied, buried, or rejected because they felt unacceptable. But ignoring them does not erase them. In fact, it strengthens their hold over us. Only when we find the courage to confront them can we begin to integrate and release their influence. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you neglect the weeds, they will not disappear. They will grow, choking the flowers, draining the soil of nutrients. But if you take the time to clear them, to tend to the space, you can plant something new, something vibrant. The same applies to your emotions and relationships. If you do not examine and nurture them, they will end up controlling you. However, the moment you decide to face them, you create the space for something better. This process may lead you to realize that certain people in your life no longer align with who you are becoming. Some relationships, instead of uplifting you, keep you trapped in cycles of negativity. Letting go of them is not an act of selfishness, but one of self-respect. And Jung would remind us that self-love is not a luxury. It is a necessity, because only when you truly value yourself can you extend authentic love to others. You may also uncover limiting beliefs that have been holding you back for years. Thoughts like, I am not enough, I need this person to be happy, or if I let go, I will never find something better. Your beliefs are not absolute truths. They are stories you have constructed over time, often shaped by the expectations of others. But what if I told you that you have the power to rewrite those stories? You are not doomed to live under the same limiting narratives. You can choose a perspective that empowers you instead of one that keeps you trapped in the past. When you start making these changes, something remarkable happens. Not only does your mind feel lighter, but your energy shifts as well. The emotional burdens that once kept you stuck begin to dissolve, transforming into a force that drives your personal growth. Confusion fades into clarity, apathy turns into motivation, and you experience a deep sense of peace you may not have felt in a long time. This is because letting go is not about losing. It's about returning to yourself, to your balance, to your true essence. Emotional detachment is not an act of coldness or indifference. It is, in reality, a sign of emotional and spiritual maturity. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the parts of ourselves that we have chosen to ignore or suppress. Embracing our shadow does not just heal us internally, it transforms our relationships, allowing us to break free from toxic cycles and repetitive patterns. Every time you choose to release something that no longer aligns with you, you are making a courageous decision. You are sending a clear message to your unconscious mind. You deserve more, you are ready to evolve, and you are willing to create space for what truly elevates you. But this process is not easy. Letting go means confronting some of your deepest fears. The fear of being alone, the fear of change, the fear of the unknown. Yet, as Jung taught, true power lies in facing these fears head-on. Resistance to change is natural. Your mind will try to cling to what is familiar, even if that familiarity brings suffering. But here's the real question. What are you sacrificing by staying where you no longer belong? Are you giving up your mental peace, your happiness, your dreams? Choosing to let go is not a loss. It is an opening. You are not losing anything that truly belongs to you. You are making room for something greater, something more authentic, something aligned with who you are becoming. Imagine how your life would change if you stopped carrying the weight of what no longer serves you. Think about the relief, the regained energy, the deep sense of calm you could experience. That kind of freedom is not a distant fantasy. It is within your reach. All it takes is one decision, recognizing what is holding you back and choosing to release it. Jung taught that our unconscious mind constantly communicates with us, but it does so through symbols, emotions, and recurring patterns in our lives. If you find yourself stuck in relationships that drain you or situations that bring you continuous discomfort, it is not a coincidence. It is your unconscious sending you a message, showing you a lesson that you have yet to learn. However, we often ignore these signs, hoping things will change on their own or believing we have no control over our reality. But the truth is, change is always within your grasp. It is not about waiting for the perfect moment or relying on luck. It is about taking action, listening to what your soul truly needs, and having the courage to write a new story for yourself. Let me tell you something, you have the power. You have the ability to reshape your life, redirect your energy, and create an environment that truly reflects your values and authenticity. But to do that, you must be willing to release what no longer serves you. And this act of letting go isn't just a gift to yourself. It's a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. When you free yourself from toxic relationships and limiting patterns, you unconsciously inspire others to do the same. Emotional detachment isn't about abandoning everything without thought. It's about taking a deep, honest look at your life, recognizing what aligns with you and what doesn't, then making choices that reflect that awareness. This process takes courage, but it also demands patience and self-compassion. Transformation doesn't happen overnight, but every small step you take moves you closer to the inner peace you crave. And here's the remarkable thing. As you begin to release, you'll notice that life starts to shift in unexpected ways. The right people come into your life, new opportunities arise, and decisions that once felt overwhelming suddenly become clear and effortless. It's as if the universe responds to your decision to live in alignment with your truth. Jung spoke of synchronicity, a profound concept that perfectly illustrates this. When you are in tune with yourself, the external world begins to mirror that harmony. This isn't magic. It's the manifestation of your internal energy. And that energy, when it's focused and unburdened by unnecessary attachments, has the power to transform not only your life but also the lives of those around you. Of course, this journey won't be without challenges. There will be moments when the pull of the familiar tempts you to return to old habits, even when you know they no longer bring you happiness. But every time you choose peace over chaos, authenticity over fear, you're building a life of meaning, one that no one can take from you. As you navigate the path of emotional detachment, remember, you are not alone. Even though it may feel like you're venturing into the unknown, countless others have walked this road before you. Jung referred to this as a journey of the inner hero, a process where each step toward confronting your fears and shedding emotional burdens brings you closer to your truest self. Think of it this way. Every time you choose to let go, you are breaking invisible chains that have held you captive, chains woven from expectations, guilt, and the fear of rejection. But by breaking them, you're opening the door to a kind of freedom that many will never experience because they remain trapped in the comfort of the familiar. Walking this path does not mean you will be free from pain or discomfort. On the contrary, there will be moments when you feel fragile, confused, or even lost. Yet, it is precisely in those moments of uncertainty that the most profound transformation takes place. Jung believed that consciousness cannot awaken without suffering. It is through these struggles that you uncover your true strength, your resilience, and, most importantly, your authenticity. Releasing what no longer serves you allows you to reconnect with something that has always been within you, your intuition, that inner voice that knows what is right for you, even when you choose to ignore it. But when you finally start listening, something extraordinary happens. The decisions that once felt impossible suddenly become clear. The relationships that once drained you start to fade, making room for the ones that uplift you. This is not random. Jung believed in the power of synchronicity, the mysterious way in which events align as if the universe is responding to your inner transformation. These experiences are not mere coincidences. They are proof that aligning your life with your truth has a real impact on the world around you. However, reaching this level of clarity requires deep self-exploration. You must be willing to face your shadows, the hidden aspects of yourself that you have suppressed because they feel uncomfortable or even frightening. Jung famously said that enlightenment is not achieved by imagining figures of light, but by bringing darkness into consciousness. This is the most profound and transformative inner work you can do. When you face your shadows, you are not just healing old wounds. You are reclaiming lost parts of yourself. Perhaps you will rediscover forgotten talents, abandoned dreams, or an inner strength you never knew you had. This process is far from easy, but the result is a life that feels genuine, purposeful, and, above all, peaceful. Imagine waking up each morning feeling light, knowing that every decision you make is aligned with who you truly are. This does not mean that life will be perfect or that you will never encounter obstacles, but it does mean that you will have the clarity and strength to face them with balance and confidence. Part of this journey involves learning to set boundaries. Jung believed that our energy is sacred and must be protected from anything that drains it. This is not always easy, especially when it involves people close to us. But setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. When you take care of your energy, you are not only benefiting yourself, but also those who truly matter, because you are showing up as your best self. Think about how different your life would be if you could say no without guilt, if you could prioritize your needs without feeling selfish, if you could surround yourself with people who uplift you instead of exhausting you. This is not some unattainable dream. It is something you can achieve when you choose to detach emotionally from what no longer resonates with you. Letting go does not mean failure or giving up. It means choosing something better for yourself. Choosing yourself means prioritizing your peace, happiness, and authenticity. Every time you make decisions that support your well-being, you are actively shaping a life that truly reflects who you are. When you begin to live in alignment with your inner truth, something incredible happens. You naturally attract everything that resonates with your essence. The right people, the right opportunities, and the deep sense of peace you have been searching for all start to flow effortlessly into your life. But this is not a coincidence. It is a direct result of having the courage to release what no longer serves you and embrace the person you were always meant to be. This journey is not about reaching a final destination. It is a continuous evolution. There will be days when fear or doubt try to creep back in, but now you have something invaluable, the awareness that you have a choice. You get to decide which thoughts to nurture, which relationships to keep, and which path to follow. That is your greatest power. The beauty of emotional detachment, as Jung taught, is that it not only transforms your inner world, but also creates a ripple effect in the world around you. When you break free from the chains of the past, you inspire others to do the same. When you choose to live from a place of authenticity, you set off a chain reaction that touches everyone in your life. Your transformation becomes a source of light, a silent yet powerful influence that encourages others to embrace their own truth. So now, I invite you to reflect deeply. What are you ready to release today? What beliefs, relationships, or emotions have been holding you back from moving forward? The answers to these questions could be the key to stepping into the life you were always meant to live. The decision to let go is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage. It means you are ready to step into the life you truly deserve, free from the weight of the past and open to the infinite possibilities that await you. Growth is not about avoiding pain, but about transforming it into wisdom. It is about using every challenge, every setback, and every difficult moment as fuel to propel you forward. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if you no longer carried the burdens that have been weighing you down. Imagine waking up every day with a heart full of peace, knowing that you are in alignment with your truth, no longer seeking validation from others, no longer trapped by past regrets, but instead walking with confidence toward the life you were meant to live. This is not a dream. It is a choice to reclaim your power, to break free from limiting beliefs, and to embrace the limitless potential that exists within you. The journey will not always be easy, and there will be moments of doubt, but every step you take toward your true self will be worth it. You are capable of incredible transformation, and the moment you decide to release what no longer serves you, you will realize that the only thing standing between you and your best life has always been the fear of letting go. So I ask you once more, what are you ready to release today? What part of your past, what fear, what toxic attachment are you willing to leave behind so that you can finally embrace the future that is waiting for you? The time to take action is now. Your new life begins the moment you choose it. And remember, this is just the beginning. If you found this message valuable, make sure to subscribe and stay with us for more content that will guide you on your journey of transformation. See you in the next video.
Imagine for a moment that within you lies a secret, a hidden power capable not only of lifting your self-esteem to levels you never thought possible, but also of completely transforming the way you attract people, experiences, and opportunities into your life. This is not a shallow trick or an empty promise, like so many that are spread across the world. It is a profound discovery that comes from one of the greatest minds in psychology, Carl Jung. He devoted his life to exploring the darkest and most mysterious corners of the human soul. And what he found changes everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Today, I want to guide you through this journey, a journey that will not only help you feel more confident and valuable, but also help you attract what you truly deserve: authentic relationships, inner fulfillment, and a life that resonates with the essence of who you really are. Jung believed that within each of us exists an entire universe, an inner world filled with infinite possibilities, but also with shadows we've been conditioned to ignore. Have you ever felt as though something inside you was holding you back? Perhaps it's that subtle voice that whispers you're not enough, that you don't deserve more than what you have, or that constant fear of being rejected. Jung would say, this is not a flaw, nor an accident. It is your unconscious speaking to you. It communicates through emotions, through intuitions, and even through the people who cross your path. This unconscious is not an enemy. It is a guide, a teacher urging you to awaken and reclaim the value that has always been inside you. Think about your life for a second. How many times have you found yourself in a situation where everything seemed fine on the surface, yet deep down you felt something was off? Maybe it was a relationship that looked perfect to everyone else, but left you feeling empty. or a job that others admired yet made you feel trapped. Jung taught us that those inner sensations are not meaningless noise. They are messages from the unconscious, signals attempting to steer you towards something better. He called this the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, a self that does not bend under external expectations nor settle for less than it deserves. But here is the first great secret Jung revealed for elevating your self-esteem and attracting what you deserve. You must first look inward, not outward. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with images and ideas of what we should be: more successful, more attractive, wealthier. And in our desperate attempt to fit in, we lose connection with our true essence. Jung explained that when you lose that connection with yourself, your self-esteem collapses because you are living a life that does not belong to you. It's like wearing a costume that doesn't fit, and with each passing day, you feel more uncomfortable in your own skin. So, how do we begin to change this? Jung gave us a powerful clue. The unconscious does not speak in clear words the way we do now. It speaks in symbols, dreams, emotions, and at times through that inexplicable gut feeling when something simply doesn't feel right. Have you ever met someone, and even without a logical reason, something inside urged you to keep your distance? That is your intuition, a sacred tool, Jung believed. Listening to it is not a luxury. It is essential if you want to build strong self-esteem and attract relationships and experiences that uplift you instead of drain you. Let's talk about self-esteem for a moment. For Jung, it was never about just feeling good about yourself in a shallow or cosmetic sense. True self-esteem is about recognizing your intrinsic value, a value that does not depend on the opinions of others or the number of likes you get on a photo. He believed that real self-esteem is born when you reconcile with every part of yourself, even the ones you dislike. And here enters one of his most fascinating yet most challenging concepts: the shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, is that part of us we hide from the world. It holds our flaws, fears, insecurities, and even desires we dare not admit, not even to ourselves. Perhaps it's the anger you repress because it's not right to be angry, or the envy that burns when you see someone achieving what you wish for yourself. Most of us spend our lives running away from the shadow, pretending it doesn't exist. But Jung gave us a crucial warning. The more you ignore it, the more power it gains over you. And this power manifests in ways you've likely already experienced. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to push your buttons for no apparent reason? Or how you find yourself repeating the same painful patterns in your relationships as though trapped in an endless cycle? Jung would say, that is not bad luck. It is your shadow projecting itself outward. Those people who irritate you are not the real problem. They are mirrors reflecting something inside of you that you haven't yet faced. And here is where the magic begins. When you start integrating your shadow, when you accept those darker aspects of yourself, your self-esteem grows because you are no longer at war with yourself. You become whole, authentic, and therefore magnetic. Imagine walking through life, carrying a backpack full of stones, each stone representing something you deny about yourself. A fear, a guilt, a belief that you're not enough. That backpack weighs you down, drains you, and makes you attract relationships and situations that reinforce that burden. Now imagine opening that backpack and looking inside. It isn't comfortable, of course not. But by recognizing those stones and saying, yes, this is also a part of me, you begin to release them, one by one. And with every stone you drop, you feel lighter, more confident, and more worthy of the good life has to offer. Jung taught us that self-esteem is not built by seeking external validation, but by confronting what lies within. And when you do this inner work, something incredible happens. The external world begins to respond. This is not magic in the fairy tale sense. It is a principle Jung called synchronicity. He believed that when you align with your true self, the universe seems to conspire in your favor. The right people appear, opportunities open up, and suddenly you realize you are attracting not what you used to settle for, but what you truly deserve. Yet let's not deceive ourselves. This process requires courage. Jung spoke of choosing the road less traveled, the dark and unfamiliar path that forces you to face your deepest fears. Most people prefer to stay in the comfort zone, following what society dictates. But if you want to elevate your self-esteem and live a life worth living, you must dare to walk that difficult path. Because it is in that uncomfortable place, in that darkness, where you discover the light that has always been inside you. Think about your relationships. How many times have you allowed someone to make you feel small? How many times have you let your boundaries be crossed because you didn't want to cause conflict? Jung would say that every time you do this, you are sending a message to your unconscious. I am not worthy enough. And your unconscious listens. It responds by attracting more of the same. People who drain you, situations that exhaust you. But here lies the good news. You can change that message. When you start protecting your energy, when you decide not to settle and surround yourself only with those who respect and uplift you, you are telling your unconscious, I deserve more. And the universe begins to reflect that back. Perhaps right now, you are already thinking of someone in your life who makes you feel drained, insecure, or trapped. That awareness itself is the first step, because once you recognize it, you hold the power to change the story. Jung would invite you to reflect on what that person in front of you is truly showing about yourself. What part of your shadow is asking to be acknowledged? It is never about blaming others, but about using every experience as a mirror for your growth. Each interaction, each conflict, each emotion triggered by another person is, in reality, an opportunity to turn inward and discover something hidden within you. Because when you begin to grow, when you truly value yourself, you naturally stop tolerating what no longer serves you. And that decision is the very first step toward attracting what you genuinely deserve: love, respect, and abundance. Now that we've explored how the unconscious and the shadow, as Carl Jung explained, are essential keys to understanding who we really are, I want to take you a step further. Looking inside and recognizing those hidden parts is only the beginning. The real power lies in what you choose to do with what you discover. Imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror, but this is not an ordinary mirror. This one reveals everything: your fears, your doubts, your unhealed wounds, but also your inner strength, your radiant light, and your limitless potential. What would you do if you could see all of that at once? Jung would say that this is the moment transformation begins. Integration of the shadow is not easy. I'll admit that. It is an act of bravery, one that requires you to face what you would prefer to avoid. Perhaps it is that insecurity that makes you doubt your abilities, or that anger you suppress because you want to appear kind. Yet here is the twist Jung gifted us with. The parts of yourself you reject are not flaws. They are pure energy, waiting to be redirected. Imagine your anger, instead of being a source of shame, becoming the very fuel that drives you to set boundaries and defend your worth. Or picture your fear, rather than paralyzing you, transforming into a guide that points you toward what truly matters. When you begin to see your shadow not as your enemy, but as your teacher, your self-esteem doesn't just grow, it becomes indestructible. And why is this so important? Because your self-esteem is the foundation of everything you attract into your life. Jung believed that the external world is a reflection of your internal one, a concept he called projection. If, deep inside, you carry the belief that you are unworthy of love, respect, or success, you will continue attracting people and circumstances that confirm that belief. But when you change that inner narrative, when you decide that you are worthy of the best, the universe begins to reorganize itself around you. It is as though you give your unconscious a new instruction. I will only accept what elevates me. And believe me, your unconscious is always listening. Let's talk about relationships, because this is where Jung's secret becomes most evident. Have you ever been with someone who made you feel less than who you are? Maybe they never said it outright, but their actions left you with a constant sense of emptiness, as though you had to keep proving yourself to be enough. Jung would say that such a relationship is not a coincidence. It is a projection of something unresolved within you. Perhaps it is a part of your shadow that still believes you need others' approval to feel valuable. But here is the liberating truth. You don't need anyone to complete you. You are already whole. And when you truly integrate that truth, when you realize that your worth depends on no one else, you begin to attract people who see you for who you really are, not for who they want you to be. Think of this process like a deep cleaning of your life. Imagine opening a closet packed with old clothes. Some don't fit anymore, some are worn out, and some you don't even like, but you hold on to them just in case. Now apply that image to your relationships and life situations. How many times have you held on to people or experiences that diminish you, simply out of fear of the emptiness their absence might leave? Jung invites us to let go, not from a place of defeat, but from a place of empowerment. Because when you release what doesn't resonate with you, you create space for what does. And that space doesn't stay empty for long. It soon fills with people and experiences that reflect your new sense of self-worth. This is where another fascinating concept enters: synchronicity. Jung described it as those meaningful coincidences that feel too perfect to be random. Have you ever let go of something toxic, only to have an unexpected opportunity appear in your life? Or perhaps you met someone at the exact moment you needed them, as if the universe itself rewarded your courage. Jung explained that this isn't luck, it's the natural outcome of aligning with your authentic self. When you elevate your self-esteem and dare to live in truth, the outer world begins to synchronize with that energy. It is as though the universe whispers, "Finally, you are ready to receive what you deserve." But let me be honest, this path is not without challenges. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, moments when the fear of change makes you want to step back. Jung knew this well. He said, "There is no awakening of consciousness without pain." That pain may appear as difficult goodbyes, as uncomfortable truths, or as the release of beliefs you've carried for years. Yet that pain is not punishment, it is purification. Just like cleansing a wound, it hurts at first, but it is necessary for healing. And when healing comes, what remains is a stronger, clearer, more confident version of you. Now I want you to imagine your life as a garden. At this moment, there may be weeds growing, relationships that drain you, thoughts that limit you, habits that keep you stagnant. But you hold the power to remove those weeds and plant something new. Each time you choose to value yourself, each time you say no to what harms you and yes to what nurtures you, you plant seeds of self-esteem. With time, that garden flourishes. You attract people who water you with love and respect, opportunities that help you shine, and an inner peace that no external condition can take away. Jung also left us with a practical tool for this journey: reflection. He believed that self-knowledge is not something that happens magically. It requires time, attention, and honesty. So, I invite you to try this with me now. Think of a situation in your life that feels heavy. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, or even a dream you've abandoned. Ask yourself, what is this showing me about myself? What part of my shadow is asking to be seen? And what would happen if I dared to let go of what no longer serves me? You don't need to answer aloud. Just let these questions echo in your mind, because they are the beginning of something powerful. Often the signs from the unconscious don't arrive like thunder. They are subtle, like a spark of curiosity. Maybe you've felt the urge to explore something new, a hobby, a place, an idea. Jung would say that this is not coincidence. It is your unconscious opening a door to your authenticity. But to cross that door, you must trust yourself. You must believe that you deserve more than a mediocre life, more than relationships that suffocate you, more than dreams collecting dust in a drawer. And here is the climax of this secret. When you live authentically, when you allow yourself to be who you truly are, without masks or excuses, you become a magnet for everything you deserve. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming your fullest self. It isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. Because the people who are meant to be in your life don't want a false version of you. They want your light, your truth, your essence. And the opportunities destined for you don't arrive when you hide. They arrive when you dare to shine. So, what does this mean for you today? It means you have a choice. You can continue carrying that heavy backpack full of stones, tolerating what drains you, settling for less than you are worth. Or you can decide that enough is enough. You can begin to listen to your intuition, face your shadow, and build a self-esteem that doesn't just sustain you, but lifts you higher. And when you do, you will see how the universe responds. The right people will appear, the right doors will open, and you will realize that you always had the power to attract what you truly deserve. Before we close, I want you to reflect on this. What are you willing to release in order to make space for what you really want? What part of yourself have you been suppressing that deserves to be freed? Because Jung's secret is not just a theory. It is an invitation to live differently, to live a life where your self-worth is non-negotiable, where you only accept what honors you, and where every single day becomes a reflection of your truth. If this has resonated with you, I invite you to share this message with someone who needs it, someone who is ready to elevate their self-esteem and attract what they truly deserve. Leave a comment below and tell me, what are you ready to let go of today? What step will you take to align with your truth? Your words won't just inspire me. They will inspire this entire community that is growing alongside you. Subscribe if you haven't yet, activate the notification bell, and let's continue this journey together. Because the world needs more authentic, courageous souls like you. Thank you for being here. Remember, the change begins with you. Every second you spend entirely alone carries a price that few of us ever stop to calculate. In a world obsessed with constant motion, endless stimulation, and the company of others, we have almost forgotten what it means to be in true solitude. Today, silence is treated as something suspicious, emptiness as something threatening, and solitude as something to be avoided at all costs. But Carl Jung, whose work changed forever the way we understand the human psyche, revealed something profoundly unsettling about those rare moments of authentic aloneness. They are simultaneously the most valuable and the most feared experiences we can have. Solitude, when approached consciously, opens a door to dimensions of existence that most people never dare to enter. It is a territory where time itself thickens, where minutes lose their mechanical rhythm and transform into something denser, something nourishing, something almost physical. If you allow yourself to step into that space, what you will discover may alter the way you relate to yourself forever. Yet most of humanity flees from this encounter as if solitude were a disease. People would rather surround themselves with shallow distractions, with the noise of meaningless conversations or the glow of endless screens, than face the weight of their own presence. And here lies one of the most fascinating paradoxes of human life. Those who embrace solitude, not as punishment, but as practice, acquire an inner wealth that accompanies them everywhere, even when standing in the middle of a crowd. By contrast, those who constantly escape from themselves remain impoverished, dependent, unable to recognize their own depths. This flight from solitude has only grown more urgent in our digital age, where the smallest silence is immediately filled with notifications, entertainment, or background noise. True solitude has become rare. And because it is rare, it has also become more essential. Jung lived in an era without the distractions of modern technology, which allowed him to observe the human mind with a clarity that is almost impossible today. He understood that solitude was not pathological isolation or the sadness of abandonment. It was something more radical, the direct encounter with one's own being, without masks, without diversions, without social roles to dilute the truth of who we are. In this pure solitude, time itself changes nature. It no longer passes as a sequence of obligations. Instead, it becomes a substance through which we sink deeper into ourselves. For Jung, solitude was not absence, but presence, an intensified awareness of self. He often retreated for long periods, not to escape the world, but to investigate who he was, when no one was watching. In his own words, "I withdraw, not to hide from the world, but to know who I am, when the world is not watching." Solitude became for him a laboratory of self-knowledge. It was in those hours of retreat that he allowed himself to experiment with the different voices inside him, to question ideas without fear of judgment, to contradict himself freely, to imagine possibilities that might appear unacceptable to others. This freedom to explore without censorship was only possible because he was truly alone. There is a crucial distinction here. To be physically alone is not the same as being in solitude. You can be isolated in your room, yet still be haunted by inner dialogues, replaying past conversations, worrying about the future, scrolling through other people's lives in your mind. True solitude demands something else. It requires the courage to stop running from yourself, to allow silence to unfold, to sit face to face with your own breath, your own thoughts, your own unfiltered being. And that is why so few people can bear it. Ask yourself honestly, how much time do you truly spend with yourself, without background music, without a phone in your hand, without work tasks, without another person's presence to distract you? For most, the answer is almost none. The moment silence enters, anxiety follows. After just a few minutes, the discomfort becomes unbearable, and people rush back to distraction. Jung understood that this discomfort is not a sign of failure, but the doorway to deeper understanding. Passing through that initial unease is the only way to uncover the truth of who you are beneath the noise. The economy of time changes completely in solitude. In the presence of others, time is currency, spent on maintaining appearances, fulfilling roles, impressing, or avoiding conflict. Every minute has a function in the theater of relationships, but in authentic solitude, that theater collapses. Time no longer belongs to performance. It becomes available for contemplation, for reflection, for creativity. It is in these spaces that the mind produces its most original insights, not because it is trying to appear clever, but because it is finally free to be honest with itself. This honesty, however, has a cost. Solitude forces you to confront what you usually avoid: your contradictions, your hidden fears, the unanswered questions you bury under daily busyness. And this is precisely why most prefer shallow company over silence. Mediocre distraction feels safer than radical self-awareness. Yet Jung discovered that those who embrace solitude paradoxically become more capable of intimacy, more authentic in their presence, more alive in their relationships with others. By grounding themselves in their own being, they are freed from the desperate need to seek validation outside. This is one of the most surprising revelations about solitude. Logic suggests that spending long periods alone would make someone antisocial, awkward, or emotionally distant. But reality shows the opposite. Those who learn to inhabit their own company with curiosity and courage often become the most interesting, most genuine companions for others. Their relationships are no longer burdened with hidden demands, with the silent expectation that another person must complete them. Instead, they approach others from fullness, not from lack. Anthropological studies confirm this across cultures. Societies that cultivate conscious solitude tend to produce individuals who are more emotionally stable and capable of deeper intimacy. It is no coincidence that nearly every spiritual tradition, whether Eastern or Western, includes periods of solitary retreat as essential for human development. When you do not depend on others to feel whole, your relationships are freed from neediness. You do not project your emptiness onto others, demanding that they fill what only you can address within yourself. Jung expressed this truth with great clarity when he said, "The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to yourself. This belonging is not automatic. It emerges only when you dare to face yourself without distraction. It is born in those quiet moments when there is nothing to soften the impact of reality but your own presence. The difference between a person who fears solitude and one who chooses it is immense. The first lives enslaved to external approval, always seeking company to avoid themselves. The second has discovered an inner source of meaning that enriches both solitude and connection. This is not emotional coldness, nor detachment from life. On the contrary, it is the condition that allows for the fullest participation in life. When you are no longer searching outside yourself for completion, you can be fully present in each moment, giving freely because you are not secretly taking. Jung's insight overturns a cultural myth, the idea that only social or productive time has value. In truth, the time you spend in solitude is not wasted. It is the foundation of a fulfilled existence. In those moments, you develop what could be called intimate intelligence, the ability to observe your own psyche without judgment, to see patterns in your emotions and behaviors, to recognize what truly belongs to you and what has been borrowed from the expectations of others. This intimate intelligence becomes the compass for authentic living. It allows you to make decisions that arise from your own center, not from the pressure of norms or the weight of appearances. It helps you distinguish between what truly nourishes you and what merely distracts you. It teaches you to recognize the difference between genuine desire and borrowed preference. And perhaps most importantly, it allows you to see when you are acting from truth and when you are simply playing a role. This clarity does not develop in the noise of company. It develops only in the silence of authentic solitude. Reflect then on your own relationship with solitude. When was the last time you spent meaningful time with yourself, without interruptions, without any device, without anyone else's presence shaping your attention? How did it feel? If it was uncomfortable, perhaps that discomfort was not a failure, but an invitation, a signal that beneath the noise lies a deeper layer of your being waiting to be discovered. Jung's wisdom about solitude is not abstract philosophy. It is a map for transformation, a practical guide to becoming whole. Because in the end, to learn to be with yourself is to discover the one companion who will never abandon you, your own soul. Developing a conscious and deliberate relationship with your own solitude is not something that happens overnight. It requires practice, discipline, and above all, a willingness to face yourself without masks, distractions, or the constant noise of the outside world. Yet, when you truly engage with solitude in this way, the transformation is profound. It reshapes how you perceive yourself, how you relate to others, and how you move through life. The first step is learning to distinguish between two very different states: reactive isolation and conscious solitude. Reactive isolation is what happens when you withdraw because you are overwhelmed, tired, or hurt. It comes from a desire to escape, from the exhaustion that accumulates when external demands feel like too much, or from the wounds that require time to heal. And although this withdrawal is often necessary, it is not the same as consciously choosing solitude. Conscious solitude is not about running away. It is about intentionally turning inward to encounter yourself. It is not passive. It is an active practice. To live in conscious solitude, you must create spaces where you meet yourself without agenda, without pressure, without the need to justify or explain anything. This does not necessarily mean sitting in meditation, though meditation can certainly be one of the doors. It can be as simple as setting aside a consistent moment each day to be fully with yourself. What matters is that it is intentional, that you are not simply killing time, but allowing your own experience to unfold. Carl Jung emphasized that every human being requires an inner sanctuary, a sacred retreat where they can step back from the world and exist without being defined by a role, a task, or an expectation. In those moments, the challenge is resisting the impulse to fill silence with endless activity. You must let whatever needs to arise come forward, even if it feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it will be boredom, other times anxiety, and at other times an emptiness that unsettles you. But Jung understood that these states are not enemies to be feared. They are signals, messengers of the deeper dimensions of your being. Boredom, for example, is often misunderstood. We are taught to escape it at all costs, to always remain busy. But within solitude, boredom is not an enemy. It is a threshold. If you can remain present with it, boredom transforms into creativity, into deeper self-knowledge, into new ways of seeing your life. Jung realized that the most meaningful insights about the self often arrive in those empty, restless spaces where nothing seems to happen. Rather than rejecting these states, he learned to welcome them with patience and curiosity. With time, those very moments become fertile ground for nourishment and renewal, though they are difficult to describe to anyone who has not truly lived them. This is how you begin to cultivate what Jung called a friendship with yourself. It is not a superficial form of self-indulgence. It is a relationship rooted in honesty, curiosity, and compassion toward your own inner life. When you can dwell in solitude without fear, something fundamental shifts. Your presence in the world becomes more grounded, less reactive, less dependent on external approval. You stop needing to fill silences with meaningless words. In conversations, you can be fully present because you are no longer anxiously monitoring how you are being perceived. This change does not just remain within you. It radiates into every aspect of your life. When you know who you are in solitude, your decisions become clearer and more authentic. Even the most difficult choices lose their weight because you are no longer seeking answers outside of yourself. You recognize what nourishes you and what drains you. You can see the difference between living from your true center and simply playing roles imposed by others. And your relationships inevitably transform as well. When you no longer depend on someone else to fill an inner void, you can relate to them from abundance rather than from lack. You can offer genuine presence because you are not secretly trying to take something in return. Jung often reminded us that freedom is not found in doing whatever you wish, but in aligning yourself with what you can truly and authentically do. That kind of freedom is only possible when you know yourself deeply, and this kind of knowledge can only arise in solitude. Ask yourself honestly, when you make important decisions, are they born from inner clarity or from the pressure to satisfy the expectations of others? To live authentically, you must confront that question again and again. And yet there is a deeper dimension that Jung pointed toward. Solitude is not just personal. It has a collective resonance. Every individual who learns to inhabit their solitude authentically becomes a silent teacher to others. Without saying a word, your presence shows people that it is possible to live without constant reactivity, without endless need for validation. By embodying authenticity, you create a space where others too feel permission to be themselves. This may be one of the greatest contributions any person can make, to exist in such a way that you do not require anyone else to change in order for you to feel whole. When you develop a solid inner source of meaning and fulfillment, you engage with the world differently. You no longer cling to others to provide what you lack. Instead, you meet them with curiosity and openness. Jung understood that solitude is not about escaping life, but about preparing to live it more fully. When you know who you are, when no one is watching, when you have forged your values through honest self-confrontation, then you can participate in social life from choice rather than compulsion. The time you spend in solitude is not wasted. It is the most valuable investment you can make. It is the cultivation of the one relationship that will accompany you from the beginning of your existence until the very end, the relationship with yourself. In this relationship, you learn to listen, to attend, to be present with your inner world, and this becomes the foundation for every other relationship in your life. So what is the worth of your solitude? Its value lies in the transformation it brings. It is worth as much as knowing yourself directly, without intermediaries. It is worth as much as developing your own criteria, your own tastes, a stability that no external condition can shake. It is worth as much as becoming someone capable of offering genuine presence to others, because you no longer approach them from need, but from wholeness. It is worth as much as choosing to live from your authentic center rather than from borrowed expectations. And here is the paradox Jung revealed. The more you learn to be genuinely alone, the less lonely you feel. You create such a rich, authentic inner companionship that it remains with you even in the midst of crowds. And when you choose to be with others, you do so from abundance, not from emptiness. Time in solitude is not separation from the world. It is preparation for inhabiting it in the most authentic way possible. So reflect for a moment. What has solitude revealed to you? What truth about yourself has emerged only when distractions faded and you were left face to face with your own being? Jung would remind us that the answers you uncover in those moments are not only for you, they are a gift, a silent ripple that shapes the world around you. By learning to honor your solitude, you transform not only yourself, but also the depth and quality of human life itself. So ask yourself, what has been your most revealing experience in a moment of authentic solitude? What did you discover about yourself that only emerged when all external distractions were stripped away? If you found value in this reflection, don't forget to subscribe, activate the notification bell, and join this space where we continue exploring the wisdom of Carl Jung and the depths of the human psyche. Remember, solitude is not emptiness. It is the silent bridge that reconnects you with your most authentic self. Being alone is never the real problem. What truly hurts is feeling lonely while in your own company. Because genuine loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of your own presence. Carl Jung perceived this during his own inner exile, when, amid life's noise, the only constant companion he had was his own mind. And within that stillness, he discovered the answer. Loneliness is not a sentence, it is a mirror. Yet why do so many collapse inwardly the moment they are alone? Why does silence summon the darkest thoughts, the coldest emptiness, the heaviest anxieties? Perhaps it is not solitude that wounds, but the disconnection from the essence of one's own life. Because it has never been about having someone beside you. It has always been about being whole. You might receive endless messages, fill your days with plans, be surrounded by faces, and still feel hollow. Or you might spend an entire week without uttering a word to anyone, and yet remain in perfect peace. The real problem is not solitude itself, but the inner noise we carry when we do not know how to inhabit it. Jung observed that the soul withdraws, not to abandon the world, but to return with clarity. And you, where do you go when everything falls silent? Most flee that moment. They turn on music, scroll endlessly, call someone, do anything to avoid simply being with themselves, because they fear themselves, because they have never met themselves, because they cannot exist without constant stimulation. And therein lies the trap. The more you run from silence, the more enslaved you become to what is outside you. You seek constant approval, instant attention, forced company, all to escape the very emotions you should be quietly observing. Jung never longed to flee from the world. He sought instead to enter it with composure, not reactivity. And composure is born only in silence, in the discipline of sitting with yourself without screens, without masks, without pretexts. Yet no one teaches us this. We are conditioned to perform, to distract ourselves, to appear always accessible. We are told that being alone is sadness, that you need someone else, that without another, you are incomplete. And so we beg for attention instead of cultivating presence. To learn to be alone is not to isolate yourself. It is to encounter yourself. It is to discover within a place of safety, a space that does not collapse when others leave, a ground that does not rely on applause, messages, or promises. Because when you know how to be alone, you stop begging for company. You no longer settle for empty relationships. You no longer cling to those who bring you nothing. You no longer avoid silence for fear of hearing your truth. And in that moment, when you finally befriend yourself, the miracle happens. You are no longer alone. You are with yourself, which is, in essence, the most real and most forgotten bond of all. Jung understood that the most powerful person is not the one who controls crowds, but the one who can remain alone and not destroy themselves in the process. Perhaps this is why you do not advance, do not connect, do not heal. Because every time you are with yourself, you look for the nearest exit. But that escape does not save you. It only delays the inevitable meeting with your most honest reflection. You were not born knowing how to inhabit yourself. You were taught to meet expectations, to look outward, to seek approval. But very rarely were you taught to look inward, to sit with yourself without judgment or haste. That is why, when real solitude comes, you do not know what to do with it. You do not know how to hold that silence, how to observe your mind without wanting to shut it down, how to stay with yourself without needing to distract or numb. Jung understood that an undisciplined mind is a man's greatest enemy, that suffering comes not so much from what happens outside, but from what we allow to happen inside without awareness or guidance. And if you cannot be alone, you become addicted to others, not out of love, but out of need. And when you are with them, instead of sharing yourself, you use them to avoid facing yourself. You do not seek connection, you seek distraction. That is why many relationships fail, not because of the lack of love, but because they are built from emptiness. Two people who cannot be with themselves expect the other to give them what they have never cultivated within. That is not love. It is emotional dependence. And when that dependence breaks, you not only lose someone, you lose your center because you had placed it outside. That is when the densest loneliness appears, the one that feels like a loss of identity. Jung's philosophy offers a powerful idea that a wise person is never truly alone because they carry their own universe within. And that universe is not made of noise or promises, but of conviction, values, and presence. Learning to be alone is returning to yourself. It is asking, without fear, what you really need, what you have been avoiding, what inner voices you have silenced for fear of what they might reveal. And when you dare to listen, at first they hurt. They are critical, judgmental, fearful, insecure. But little by little, if you do not run, something else emerges. A calmer, wiser, firmer voice. The one that has always been there, waiting to be heard. That voice is you. Not your ego, not your masks, not your wounds. You, without adornments, without filters. And when you finally reconnect with that voice, solitude begins to transform. It is no longer punishment, it becomes companionship. Because the real problem was never loneliness. It was the emptiness of meaning. It was the disconnection from your purpose, your emotions, your essence. That is where the real work begins, not in forcing yourself to feel fine, not in pretending it doesn't affect you, but in building a relationship with yourself so solid that your emotional state no longer depends on others. Jung wrote that within each of us lies an impregnable fortress, a citadel that cannot be destroyed by anything external. But you only find it when you stop seeking outside what can only be built inside. And yes, there will be days when the silence feels uncomfortable, moments when you want to escape. But if you stay a little longer, if you breathe and remain, you will discover that the peace you seek is not in someone else, but in you. That is the difference between being alone and feeling alone. One is a fact, the other an interpretation. There is a freedom that only solitude can give, a freedom that does not feel like euphoria, but like calm. It is not a shout, it is a deep sigh that comes when you stop trying to fit in. Jung found that freedom in the midst of life's battles, betrayals, and decisions that shaped destinies. But his true battle was never against external enemies. It was against his impulses, his disordered thoughts, his emotions without direction. And if he, with all his knowledge, understood that the only real mastery was mastery of the self, why do you still believe that being alone means being incomplete? Society bombards you with images of couples, shared success, ideal friendships, but no one speaks of the value of intimacy with yourself, of that silent hour when you understand things no one could ever explain. When you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, it's not that you no longer need anyone, it's that you no longer define yourself through anyone. And that completely changes how you relate. You stop demanding, begging, manipulating. You start sharing from abundance, from a space within you that is full, not to fill voids, but to expand, to enjoy, to be without depending. And that emotional maturity only arrives when you cross the discomfort of solitude, when instead of avoiding it, you make it your ally, your teacher, your mirror. Because in solitude, you can see how much noise you carry, how much of what you do is for the need to be seen, loved, or accepted, and how much is the genuine expression of your essence. In that space appears a vital question. If no one were watching, would you still do the same? If no one applauded you, would you still walk that path? If you were completely alone, would you be happy with who you are? The answers hurt, but they free you, because they show you to what extent you have been betraying yourself, postponing your authenticity out of fear of judgment, abandonment, or discomfort. And once you see it clearly, you can no longer go back. You can no longer keep running from yourself, because you have understood that the only constant in this life is you. And if you do not cultivate that relationship, no other can last for long. Jung wrote that the soul grows stronger in the solitude of its own company, like a fire that shines brighter in the dark. And you are no exception. You can be that fire too. You can also shine from within. But you must stop constantly seeking outside. You must give yourself that space, not once a week, not only when you feel overwhelmed, but every day, even if only for a few minutes, even if at first it feels uncomfortable. Because every time you choose to remain with yourself, even briefly, You are repairing something inside. You are remembering who you are, without influence, without pressure, without noise, and little by little, what once seemed unbearable becomes familiar, and over time, it becomes your refuge. The noise of the world is constant, and many use it as anesthesia. They fill themselves with voices, plans, movements, just to avoid stopping. Because in the pause appears the question they fear the most. Did I truly choose the life I am living right now? That question, simple yet unsettling, carries the weight of every decision, every compromise, and every path you have taken. Being alone, truly alone, gives you the perfect stage to ask questions like this, the kind you usually avoid in the noise of daily life. Solitude removes the distractions, the excuses, the comfortable lies. It places you face to face with yourself, unmasked and unadorned. And it is there, in that raw and unfiltered encounter, that the true work of reconstruction begins. Many people fear that mirror. They fear what it might reveal. The truth that for years, maybe decades, they have been living not for themselves, but for the approval of others. They have been bending, adjusting, shrinking, performing, simply to fit in, to be liked, to survive. But if you can stay long enough in front of that mirror without turning away, something extraordinary happens. The same mirror that once accused you begins to offer you a possibility. You can still choose differently. Conscious solitude is not a sentence, not a curse handed down by fate. It is an open space, a fertile ground where you can plant something new. It is where you strip away the borrowed roles you've been wearing and meet the unaltered truth of who you are. In that silence, you are free to rebuild, not from habit or fear, but from a place that is authentically yours. Carl Jung understood this not only as a psychological theory, but as a lived necessity. He often withdrew from the world, even when influence and attention were within his reach. He knew that the mastery worth having begins within. If a person cannot govern themselves, cannot master their own impulses, fears, and desires, then they have no right to try to govern anything or anyone else. The discipline he cultivated was not a cold detachment. It was a warmth, a clarity, and a peace, born from no longer being a slave to mental chaos. That inner stillness allowed him to act with purpose, fairness, and humanity. When you learn to truly inhabit yourself, you no longer depend on the world's applause. You stop performing. You stop chasing validation. Your presence steadies, your mind clears, your decisions become deliberate and fully your own. People notice, even if they cannot explain why. The one who does not fear solitude is untouchable, because they cannot be bought with companionship, seduced into self-betrayal for attention, or manipulated by the fear of being abandoned. They carry within them something unshakable, something no one else can give or take away, and from that independence, relationships transform. You connect not out of desperation, but from the joy of sharing. You love without the silent bargain of, "I need you to make me whole." This shift changes the very texture of your bonds. When you are not afraid of being alone, you are also not afraid to say no, to walk away, to protect your peace. You begin to understand that returning to yourself is not a retreat. It is a ritual, a compass you can follow through every season, every loss, every crisis, and you know without question that you will be there for yourself. That knowledge is rare. It is a form of power that few dare to claim. Solitude, when embraced consciously, becomes a kind of spiritual training. It tests you, shapes you, and strengthens you. Each time you survive a night of darkness alone, you emerge with a deeper strength you didn't know you had. Carl Jung wrote that the soul is fortified in retreat, that the mind sharpens in stillness, and that only in the vast emptiness within can a true and lasting direction be found. That direction does not arrive as a command from the world. It emerges quietly from within, from the part of you that only speaks when you have the patience to listen. And in that quiet, you realize a truth that feels like coming home. You were never truly alone. You were simply distracted, scattered, and distant from yourself. Now, you are finally returning. You begin to see that real companionship is not measured by how many people surround you, but by the quality of your own presence with yourself. Perhaps your whole life you have been trained to see solitude as failure, strangeness, or weakness. But now you know, being alone can be the bravest and most necessary act of your life. In a world that glorifies noise and demands constant visibility, you choose instead to stop, to breathe, to listen, not to the voices outside, but to the one you have silenced within. You listen to your body's fatigue, your mind's restlessness, your heart's unspoken grief. You hear the dreams you postponed, the truths you buried, the wounds you refused to touch. This listening, small yet profound, changes everything. When you can sit with yourself without fear, without anxiety, without the masks you've worn for survival, you reclaim the dignity and peace you once traded for approval. It is not about rejecting the world or isolating yourself in bitterness. It is about building an inner foundation so solid that your well-being no longer hangs on the fragile thread of another person's presence. Jung believed that all we need for a complete and meaningful life already exists within us. But to find it, we need silence, courage, and discipline. 3 things modern life tries to strip away. So the next time you feel the ache of loneliness, resist the impulse to run. Resist the urge to fill your hours with noise. Stay, breathe, watch what rises to the surface. Let yourself feel it without flinching. Because right there, in that discomfort, a door opens. A door to a version of yourself that does not depend on applause, distractions, or the unpredictable tides of conditional love. On the other side of that door is freedom. And once you cross it, you can no longer go back to living the old way. You no longer give yourself away to avoid emptiness. You no longer keep yourself endlessly busy just to avoid hearing your own thoughts. You stop running because you have learned that your own company is not a prison, but a home. Learning how not to be lonely while alone is an art. Like all art, it requires patience, practice, and devotion. It asks you to replace judgment with compassion, to speak to yourself as you would to someone you deeply love. There will be days when it feels easy, and days when you fall back into old patterns. But each time, you will return to yourself a little faster. Each time, the silence will feel less like emptiness and more like a welcome embrace. One day, without realizing it, you will notice that your favorite place in the world is simply being with yourself. Not because you have stopped loving others, but because you no longer lose yourself in them. You know that as long as you are fully present within, you will never be truly alone. The world will keep demanding your attention, urging you to be reachable, responsive, and endlessly available. But you will have learned something greater, the sacred power of stopping, of listening, of honoring the life within you. And if the noise of the world ever pulls you away again, remember, nothing out there can silence the voice you have awakened. You only need to return to it, always, without fear. And perhaps, in learning to stay with yourself, you will discover the most important truth of all. You were the home you were searching for. Thank you for staying until the end. If this message resonated with you, if it touched you at some deep point, subscribe so we can continue building this space where silence also has a voice. And tell me in the comments, what is the hardest part for you about being with yourself? And what are you learning in the process of inhabiting who you are? Your experience might help someone who still feels lost. Let's begin with something you've probably never dared to consider with brutal honesty. Do you really believe that the events in your life are purely random? Think about those coincidences that left you frozen, those chance happenings that seem to flirt with the impossible. Do you truly think it's logical to see them as mere quirks of fate? Don't fool yourself. It's not chance. It's not coincidence. It's a silent call you've been ignoring for far too long. Synchronicity, the term Carl Gustav Jung gave us, isn't a theory for idle minds. It's a window into the deep architecture of the universe. A universe that isn't just chaotic machinery spinning without meaning, but a sensitive structure that responds to your internal state, to the vibration of your thoughts, to the hidden energy of your deepest desires. But here's what no one tells you. If you're not paying attention, if you let your mind drown in daily noise, those signals will pass unnoticed. They'll be like constellations you never bother to look at because you live with your eyes fixed on the ground. How many times have you felt the universe whispering something to you? How many times, just when you needed it most, did that person appear, that opportunity, that line in a forgotten book? Jung said, "Meaningful coincidences are mirrors of the soul, reflections of a hidden order connecting your inner world with the reality around you." This isn't cheap magic, it's deep psychology. It's the echo of your unconscious manifesting itself on the surface of the physical world. But here's the trap. If you insist on living solely from the rational mind, under the tyranny of cold logic, these connections dissolve like smoke. Let me put it another way. What if everything you've ever considered coincidence is actually a coded map? A map guiding you toward your true purpose. But to decode it, you have to awaken from your slumber. You have to sharpen your perception until you're able to detect the subtle signs life throws your way when you least expect it. And let me warn you, this is not a comfortable path. It's not for those who settle for the mediocrity of automatic existence. It's for those brave enough to look beyond the obvious. Did you know the human unconscious is a vast ocean where currents of intuition cross paths and defy all logic? The unconscious never sleeps. It's constantly tracking patterns beyond the reach of ordinary awareness. And that's exactly where synchronicities are born. Events don't align by chance. Your unconscious, with its infinite processing power, detects those connections before you do. The external world becomes a mirror of your inner landscape. When you align with your true essence, the universe responds. It always does. But few know how to listen. Imagine for a moment that every thought in your mind is a kind of silent magnet, attracting events that vibrate on the same frequency. This isn't poetic metaphor. It's an accurate description of how your psyche interacts with your environment. What you believe, what you feel with visceral intensity, becomes a silent command to the universe, and it responds, but not like a blind machine. It responds like a deep intelligence, orchestrating events with a precision that defies all rational explanation. Let me be clear. Life is not a random string of circumstances. It's a carefully woven narrative, waiting for you to read it with wide open eyes. But most people prefer to close their eyes and keep stumbling over the same stones. They'd rather believe in the tyranny of chance, because that way they don't have to accept the terrifying responsibility of being the co-creator of their destiny. It's easier to think everything's a coincidence than to accept we are the architects of our own reality. There are people who, in moments of absolute despair, have seen doors open that shouldn't have even existed. People who are on the edge of the abyss, and suddenly an improbable coincidence saved them from the final fall. Coincidence? Not a chance. It was synchronicity, reaching out at the crucial moment. The universe saying, "This is not your end. There's still something for you to discover, something to live. But I warn you, these signs are not eternal. If you ignore them systematically, if you refuse to listen, they will fade away. The universe doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you don't tune in your inner ear, you'll lose the connection. You'll live in a state of existential deafness, dragging yourself through a life that feels empty, because deep down, you've disconnected from the very source that gives it meaning. Jung's psychology wasn't just an intellectual curiosity. It was a compass for navigating the chaos of existence. He realized the symbols in our dreams and the coincidences that emerge are part of the same secret language. A language that, if you learn to decipher, reveals the path to your deepest purpose. Think about it. What's the point of living numbed by routine, repeating patterns that lead nowhere, when the universe constantly offers clues to change your course? You're surrounded by signs, but you'll only see them if you step out of autopilot. Only if you have the courage to ask, what is life trying to tell me right now? There's a reason why people who follow their intuition seem to have almost supernatural luck, but it's not luck. It's a heightened sensitivity to synchronicities that others ignore. They don't wait for logic to give them permission to act. They feel, they sense, they leap. And in doing so, they open doors invisible to others. That's the key that can transform your life. When you live in harmony with synchronicity, you stop chasing results. Instead, the results start chasing you. The right people, the right opportunities, the unexpected paths start showing up with eerie precision. Not because you forced anything, but because you became a living magnet for experiences that align with your true nature. Let me propose something radical. Over the next few days, observe. Don't just look. Truly observe. Pay attention to those coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. Ask yourself what hidden meaning they might carry, and most importantly, act on them. Don't let fear paralyze you in front of the possibility that life is guiding you. Because here comes the fascinating part. When you respond to these signals, when you follow them, without questioning from rigid logic, something extraordinary happens. Your life begins to align with a flow that once seemed impossible. Obstacles vanish, doubts clear up, and for the first time in a long time, you feel like you're part of something infinitely greater than yourself. Are you willing to live that way? Are you ready to let go of the false safety of linear causality and embrace the mysterious dance of synchronicity? Because if you do, get ready. Get ready for the universe to surprise you in ways even your boldest imagination couldn't predict. This isn't magic. It's not superstition. It's about understanding that reality responds to the whispers of your soul. It's about accepting that every thought, every emotion, every genuine desire sends a signal the universe picks up and reflects back through the events in your life. So open your eyes, Sharpen your intuition. Listen to the silent language all around you. Life is no accident. Life is a constant dialogue between your inner world and the cosmos. The real question is, are you truly listening? Now here's something almost no one dares to consider when we talk about synchronicity, the role of repressed emotions in the creation of these coincidences. Because let me tell you, the conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. It's in the hidden depths of the psyche where the real connections that shape your reality are forged. The emotions you don't express, the ones you bury out of fear or shame, don't vanish. They become latent energy, still sending signals to the universe without your awareness. And those signals, even if ignored, are received. That's why life often places you in situations that stir up the very feelings you thought were buried, not to punish you, but to make you finally see them, to face them once and for all. Ever found yourself attracting the same kind of people again and again, repeating relationship patterns that end the same, even if the faces change? It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's the external projection of an unresolved inner conflict. Jung called it the confrontation with the shadow. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, arranges the perfect stage for you to face your wounds. And the more you resist, the louder the signals get. At first, they're subtle, almost unnoticeable. But if you keep ignoring them, I guarantee they'll explode in front of you with a force impossible to ignore. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it doesn't want you living a half-lived life. It wants to push you, painfully if necessary, toward your full realization. What's fascinating is that these experiences don't just show you who you are. They reveal who you could become if you dared to interpret them correctly. Synchronicity isn't just a mirror. It's also a door, one that opens to unexplored territories of your human potential. Every meaningful coincidence not only reflects you, it calls you to evolve. Now I want you to consider an even deeper angle, the link between synchronicity and dreams. Because dreams aren't just nighttime fantasies, they are the soul's laboratory. In them, your unconscious plays out symbols that often show up again in waking life through synchronicities. Has it ever happened to you that you dream of something, an image, a person, a place, and days later, without any rational explanation, you come across it in real life? That's no accident. That's the outer manifestation of a message from within, trying to reach full awareness. The unconscious is always looking for ways to show you what you don't want, or don't know, how to see directly. That's why dreams and synchronicities aren't separate phenomena. They're chapters from the same hidden book you're meant to read. Think of it this way. Your psyche doesn't recognize borders between internal and external. To it, everything is part of a single playing field. So when you ignore what your inner world tries to tell you in dreams, life will show it to you through external events with synchronistic force. It's like the universe saying, "You didn't hear the whisper. Here's the shout." But wait, there's something even more intriguing, something that borders on the mystical, yet stands firm in deep psychology. Intuition as your compass to navigate synchronicity. Because intuition isn't magic. It's a biological radar system that detects patterns before your rational mind can understand them. The great minds in history, visionaries who changed the course of humanity, relied fully on this inner compass, not because they rejected reason, but because they understood reason is slow, limited, and sometimes blind. Intuition allows you to anticipate synchronicities, to feel them coming like an electric current before the storm. It's that unexplainable hunch that urges you to shift direction at just the right moment, to make decisions that defy logic, but somehow turn out to be the right ones. Listen carefully. The more you train your intuition, the more precise the coincidences become in your life, as if the universe rewards your ability to listen by sharpening even more the symbolic language it uses to guide you. This isn't fantasy. It's the culmination of a deep dialogue between your subconscious mind and the sensitive structure of reality. And here's where another dimension emerges, one that very few dare to explore: psychological time. Because synchronicities don't obey the rigid timeline most people assume as the only one. They operate in what we might call soul time, where past, present, and future weave together so that future events send echoes to the present, and present choices rewrite past experiences. Yes, what you've lived through gets reinterpreted in the light of new coincidences that completely reshape your personal story. Once you understand this, you stop seeing your life as a series of disconnected events and begin to understand it as a network of meanings constantly evolving. And in that moment, true alchemy begins. You start seeing patterns where there was once only chaos. You realize that nothing has been in vain, that every experience, no matter how painful or confusing, was quietly weaving the fabric of your purpose. But don't stop there. There's one last piece of this puzzle you need to understand. Synchronicity doesn't just connect you with your own unconscious, it connects you with the collective unconscious. Jung spoke of this to describe the vast psychic ocean we all share, a universal memory that transcends cultures, times, and borders, storing the fundamental archetypes of human experience. When you experience a meaningful coincidence, you're not just connecting with your personal story. You're touching the deep currents of human history. You're reaching a level where your individual choices intertwine with the great collective narratives. That's why sometimes a synchronicity doesn't just feel relevant to you. It carries a broader echo, as if it's part of a greater cosmic symphony you can't fully hear but can feel vibrating through every cell of your being. So here's a direct, uncomfortable, but necessary question. Are you going to keep walking like a blind spectator through the theater of life? Or will you dare to read the hidden script unfolding before your eyes? Because once you cross the threshold of ordinary perception and enter the dance of synchronicities, there's no turning back. Life stops being an accident and becomes a masterpiece under constant construction. And you are the artist. Never forget that. But wait, there's something else you may not have considered, something crucial to conclude this journey we've taken together. There's a phenomenon, a silent secret, the ability to actively create your own synchronicities. Yes, you heard that right. It's not just about observing them, not just about decoding them, but consciously provoking them. How? By changing your internal frequency. Because the universe, the one that answers with such precise signals, doesn't distinguish between what you desire and what you fear. It responds to your dominant energy. If your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, guilt, and resentment, guess what kind of coincidences you'll start to attract? Exactly, the ones that reinforce that same limiting narrative. But if you manage, and I say this with absolute certainty, if you manage to live in a mental state of openness, of genuine curiosity about life, of total trust in your path, then you start moving the invisible threads that activate synchronicities in your favor. And now, I'll drop the final revelation. When this happens, the boundary between what you dream and what you live begins to blur. What once felt like a distant wish starts to materialize in ways your logical mind could never plan. Life stops being a series of random obstacles and becomes an intimate dialogue between you and the universe. The key is realizing you're not a victim of circumstances. You are an active participant in the cosmic conversation. What you think, what you deeply feel, what you vividly imagine, gets picked up by that invisible network holding reality together. Every day is a question you send out to the universe, and every synchronicity is a reply filled with meaning, if you know how to look. Look, I don't want this video to end as just another reflection you hear and forget. I want you to close this video and start seeing your life with new eyes. I want you to dare to play with reality like a modern alchemist, turning every experience into a clue leading to your hidden purpose. Do me a favor. When you finish this video, don't leave without dropping a comment with a phrase that captures this awakening. Something like, "The universe always responds," or if you're ready to go even deeper, "I am the author of my own coincidences. I want to read you. I want to feel this conversation stretch far beyond the screen, to become something more than just words." If this journey through the folds of synchronicity has resonated with you, even in the smallest way, then I invite you, no, I urge you, to subscribe. Because what we're doing here, this isn't just another video on the internet. This is a shared exploration into the most mysterious and fascinating realms of the human mind and the reality we are co-creating moment by moment. This isn't entertainment. It's a portal, a mirror, a signal. Believe me when I say this. What's coming after this video will blow your mind even more. We're just scratching the surface of something much, much bigger. So turn on that notification bell, stay close, and walk this path with me. Because I promise you, this is just the beginning. And now, before we part ways, for now, I won't just say, "See you next time." I want to leave you with something deeper. The next time something happens in your life that feels too perfect to be random, too aligned to be coincidence, I want you to remember these words. I want you to pause, smile, say nothing, and think to yourself, "I saw it coming." Because from today on, you won't walk blindly through a world of signs and symbols. From now on, you'll walk as a conscious traveler, an awakened soul, reading the secret language of the universe. I'll see you in the next synchronicity.